Hello, welcome back to the channel. We've got a cute little card for you today. This is Lawn Fawn's Treehouse and the very special stamp set. There's going to be a little bit of masking. We've done a die cutting already to save a little bit of time. I'm going to use a bit of ink blending. I'm actually going to do a bit of a, I don't know, I think it's a little bit different because I tend to like things very sort of not really true to life, but sort of along that lines. But our sky is going to be, spoiler alert, it's going to be a little bit of different shading now. So I've already masked those off. I haven't worried about the tails. We are going to use a little bit of oxides, and I'm going to have to go back over the tails, and there's a couple of areas that you'll see shortly that I will have to go over with a pen, but that's all right. It all works out well in the end. This little bumblebee, I'm going to mask him up a couple of times, or stamp him down a couple of times, but I'm also going to mask him. I just put the tree in there just to make sure of where, you know, the position of everything is going to go. Just mask him. And then you'll find that I'm all done with my masking, just about. So these are the inks. We've got Cracked Pistachio. We've got the Lucky Clover and Black Soot, just for the very edges. I'm bringing it down, fading it down to sort of like virtually nothing. I'm not stressing about underneath the tree. You're not going to see any of it at all. So that side's not going to look as good, but it doesn't matter. It's like, why should we worry about areas that are already going to be hidden off? We don't need to. You may hear my husband's phone every now and then in that, so I do apologize. We've got the Black Soot, just like that. Okay, so hopefully that's all sorted. So we're going through. I like to go through 2 times. It makes a lot better blend. These are going to be my ground colours. I've got the antique linen, and we're going to go in at the darker with a little bit of the gathered twigs. And again, it's just fading up into, you can see there, like the tails, oxides will cover, they will layer up, and so it sort of mutes out the color a little bit. So this is a 0.3 pen, and we're just going to go over the antennas, over a little bit of the areas that when I cut the mask, I cut a little bit too much of the black, so to speak, but it's no big deal. And of course, they're little tails. So we've got C3 and C1 for the mice. Now I'm trying to keep it pretty simple because there's a lot of colouring in this one. Don't stress. This is meant to be a fun thing, so don't stress at all. I am going to use for the middle of there is R22 because it was on my desk. An R20 would probably it is a bit lighter, probably would have been a lot easier, but it does the job and it's all good. It's all good. So we've got Y38 and Y15 for our little bumblebees. And I'm also going to colour their little wings just with a little bit of C3 and C1. I'm going to sparkle those up later on because, you know, they're wings. They need to be sparkled. The greens, I've got our G28, YG67 and YG03. And I did have to pull out my stamp every now and then to sort of see what was what, basically. Because above the little mouse, it's waving, there was a couple little blobs, and I'm like going, what is that? But really, it doesn't matter. Because anyone that's going to get this card is going to love it, and they're not going to know. So we try not to stress. Going through and colouring all my little leaves. My strawberries, I think even with my greenery, I only went through one time because they're very, very little images. And if you're happy enough with your blend, then why not? So we've got Y38 for the centers of our flowers and Y15 for the around the edges. I'm also going to change those with a bit of E34 just to make them a little bit different because they didn't quite stand out the way I wanted it to. Our wood, we've got E29, E34 and E31. This does require a little bit of extra blending, shall we say, but it works out. I'm also going to use those for my tree trunk very shortly. My reds, I've got R89, R46, R24 and R22. That's sort of my favourite combo for reds. I just like it's nice, strong, vibrant red. And this is where I'm not really worrying too much about going over to 2 times because it was a good enough blend for me. And this, as I said, they're small images. I have cut about 3 altogether. Now this is 2 pieces layered up with a bit of sticky tape to keep the center in. They are C3 and C5. And honestly, there's probably a little bit of glue on the background, but it's all good. I'm going to play with this until I'm happy with it. As I said, it needs a little bit of working for it to sort of all blend nicely, but it's worth it. It's a pretty combination. So, what can we say? Not a lot happening. Here in Melbourne, the weather is very Melbourne-y. Let's just say that. It is nice and warm today. I think it's going to be 30 degrees or something like that. So really, really nice. Then it basically, I don't know what it's doing in the next couple of days, but if it's anything to do with the past, it's just going to be cold again. Let's get back to this. The bottom of this tree trunk, you can sort of see how it's got its little roots. So naturally, where I'm doing there, naturally it's going to be a little bit darker because the tree trunks has those areas that sort of come out. So I'm trying to keep that highlight in there and give him a little bit of dimension, a little bit of depth. But we're just going to keep going a little bit, trying to be dark around the edges. I am going to go back through it later on and do a more dark color at the top because I sort of realized you're going to put greenery on the top. It needs a little bit of shadow. The door actually pops out. It's hinged, so to speak. So around the edges, I've done a little bit of colouring, but you're not going to see it at all. These are the extra layered bits. I've gone around the edges and now I've just gone a little bit more just in case. And that's our finished tree trunk. This is some extra bits and pieces they have with it. These are keeping very plain and simple. This is E29. I was just colouring the piece that is behind, so I didn't really need to. It's going to be a theme through this whole thing. Watch, stay tuned. And again, this is around the door. Just keep it with one straight colour. Of course, you can use, if you want to blend it in a little bit more, you could have, done the same colouring, do a wood grain, but I was happy enough with just keeping it straightforward. And this is where you can sort of see when I held it up that my colouring was still a bit holy. Let's just say that. And I'm just going to lift up it's hard to see, but I lifted up the door just to make sure he didn't sort of get stuck down, basically. And this just frames up our little window in our door. How cute. This is really when I realised that he needed to be a little bit darker at the top. He was a little bit too light still because he wouldn't be in real life. Yes, the weather has been very up and down. What else can I tell you? Not much is really happening. This is another situation where I'm going to colour in the one that I'm not supposed to. I don't really have to do too much with, but it doesn't matter. So we're heading down to the beach, one of my sons and I, for a little bit of fun. And yeah, there's really not much. Everything's sort of settled down with the asthma, with the injuries and sicknesses and everything else. I knew it would, but you know, what can you do? It's life. It's all good. I am putting a little bit of the R89 around the top. I do have a fine tip marker, but my R46 does not, so we're just going to use a blending. And this is going to give it a little bit of brightness at the top of. There is a little panel there that you can sort of see. The solid panel, he's just for the background. This is the one that I sort of coloured and realised you're colouring the wrong thing. I got all these images and the dyes from Hobby Lobby here in Melbourne. They are online. I will leave a link down below to them. Of course, all the American peeps, you get to lucky things. You get to go straight to Lawn Fawn, or of course Simon Says. But here in Australia, it can be a little bit harder to find things. It's a little bit, yeah. I love my country, but, you know, it is a little bit harder to find things. These are the same greens that I used for the greenery on my strawberry patch. I'm going to use a little half semicircle, so to speak, and we're just going to play with it until we're happy. So he will have a little bit of texture. Of course, when you're looking at it like this, it's going to look like a hot mess. It's going to look a hot mess. Pretty much like masking does. It looks like a hot mess until it doesn't. It's going to, I'm going to cut it out and I'm not going to show you the big main one. It's just really that little one. I thought just for your viewing pleasure. This video is about, 16, 17 centimeters, minutes long. So we're putting everything together. I'm going to place this a little bit lower. I had a little bit of strings on my glue and then I probably dropped it. Trim him off. I know he's a little bit low, but we're going to work on the top, so that's okay. I have double thickness foam tape at the top of my tree leaves, and down the bottom is only one single layer, which is going to be fine. I am also going to be die cutting another of these smaller ones out, which I did off camera because to save you a bit of time. You've already seen me colour in the little ones, so, and I just needed to move, and luckily enough it did come, because this tape, I have said before, it's very, very sticky, but I think because I hadn't pressed it down. All these little bits, I'm going to be using those about on the top of the tree, because I sort of looked at it and went, you're not very full. The little grass I've raised up a tiny little bit. I forgot to take the tape off, so let's take two of that. And they just got tiny little bits of foam. So I still have to put my sentiment down, so we will get to that. But first we're going to do the top of my tree. I tell a lie. I forgot about the ground. These are C5, C3 and C1. Now, this is not recommended, but I do it very rarely, and then you will see that I make sure my marker is wiped off. So you do that at your own risk. Okay, so I've never had a problem with it, but I'm not going to advise you to do the same. You try it. If it doesn't work, just make sure you wipe it off. Okay, it's not advisable. I'm just trimming this down until I'm happy with how it's sitting, and we've just got a little bit of glue, and he's going to lay flat, so there's going to have a little bit of dimension, and then trim him off. And we're still going to use the extra bits that we've got from the other ones as well, just to fill in a couple of holes, because why not? and then one more on the other edge. He wanted to keep moving a little bit, so I'm going to fluff about with him. So I will leave a link down below to Trish from Hobby Hoppers. I love her. She's so lovely. And I will leave a link over to the blog so you can see a couple more photos close up of my card for today. The stamp set comes with lots of little stamps. Words are hard. Stamps for the sentiments, like to go onto that board, as you can see there, but it also has other larger ones, so you can pick and choose, obviously, of what you like. I thought about putting another sentiment down, but I just thought it just doesn't need it. I see people that do lots of different sentiments over the cards, and I really like it, but for this card today, that's it. The last thing we've got is a couple of greenery, using the same greens again, and I'm just going to go down to the YG67. And that is my card for today. I hope you're well. I hope if you liked what you see, hit the subscribe button and hit the like button, because it really does help out my little channel. It's slowly growing, and that's fine. Take care. I'll talk to you very soon. Bye.